Configuration Manager is designed to monitor the configurations of the devices and proactively notify you when changes occur. So there's a couple of steps to making this work. The first one is you've got to have a device that has authentication credentials that we can log into via SSH or Telnet. And there's a set of templates for different device types that kind of tell us how to interpret those connections. And so, for example, in this case, I've got a Cisco router here, and the Cisco router is understands how to parse the context of that particular device so that it can detect when I make a change exactly what changed in the configuration and when. Now, there's two ways that we do this. If a device has a has the actual information about how to log into it, we're going to automatically go in and start trying to pull the configuration from that device on a daily basis. That's automatic. If you want to stop that, you actually have to go into the tool under Advanced and turn off the scheduled config checks for the device. But by default, it's going to pull those configs once a day, and it's going to find any changes and send out notifications based on that change. The other thing it can do, though, is there is a triggered check. So in the case of Cisco, there's a Cisco configuration check you can assign to the device. The configuration check both looks to see if the configuration has been saved as well as if it's been changed. So if this check is running, I'm actually going to verify that the configuration hasn't changed every couple of minutes, as often as the config check runs. Typically, that's every 3 minutes. And if it detects that the configuration has changed, it's going to go fetch the configuration from the device, compare them, and if there's any differences, it'll send it a notification then. So it can actually notify you, close to real time if you're running that Cisco config check on those devices. Other vendors don't necessarily provide us a good way to do that without pulling the whole config every time, which is impractical from an overhead perspective. But Cisco gives us the API to do it, so there's a triggered method you can use for Cisco devices. Everything else is going to use the daily timer. Now, when it goes to generate an alert for configuration, it's typically going to include that information about what got changed in the configuration. So if I go into the device, for example, here, and I go to configuration management under reports, you can actually see all of the different times the configuration was retrieved. And if I click compare, I can actually go in and compare any of the different versions against each other to see all the changes that were made over that particular time frame. But when it detects a change, it's going to send out just the latest changes to me, basically. And it's going to say, here's what changed in the configuration, basically from the last time that the configuration was downloaded. Now, when it does that, it's going to generate what's called a configuration change alert. And in order to change where that goes, you actually have to go under administration alerts and go down to incident management. There's a rule here called configuration change alerts. And the configuration change alerts is how you control exactly where that alert goes to. So the configuration change alert rule will be pre-configured on the system, but you might have to edit it to change exactly who gets that notification when that change occurs. So you can actually set it to, who's going to get notified based on that configuration change action. And the reason we do that is because configuration change reports have to come out in a rather complicated HTML format in order to be readable and not just dump the configuration into an email for you. But you can actually set that up in the configuration change alerts rule. There's no other place you control that who gets the configuration change alert for that device. Now you can create additional parameters for this rule or even create additional rules if, for example, you want all the alerts from your security devices to go to one group and all the alerts from your routers to go to a different group. You can very easily do that by simply adding a conditional onto this rule that says if alert is a configuration change and group equals security, then send it to contact A. If otherwise, send it to contact B. So you can kind of add additional parameters around those rules, but that's how you would do it, is by editing the rule itself.